Well, hello everybody and welcome to my show. My name is Jason DeCosta and welcome to Consistent Preterism. Kind of botched that a little. It's usually, and this is Consistent Preterism, kind of like this is the nightly news. Anyway, it's been a while, guys, a long while. Just been slammed with life responsibilities. Got that new baby boy doing amazing. Jobs, work, homes, rentals, projects, all kinds of crap going on. But such is life, and sometimes you just have to handle your biz. And so I've been away from the microphone for a while, but haven't really spent much time in the old good book, and just kind of been thinking here and there about certain things. And you know, I get the occasional urge to jump on the horn here and rip into some things. And today was one of those days. So I hope everybody's doing well out there. I hope you're all thriving. I know, I've talked to some of you individually over the past months, and I appreciate your concern and reaching out, and everything is going well. So I just figured I'd jump on here, and I wanted to share something that I think is pretty obvious, pretty telltale, if you will, about how to interpret the Bible and the curse specifically, because let's face it, the curse is what it's all about, right? That's the whole story in a nutshell, is about this darn curse, right? We can't get away from this curse, and we're all cursed, and we're all separated from God, and guilty of our sins and trespasses of his holy law. And so we needed salvation, right? Because of the curse, right? It's all connected. Huge point in the story, this curse. But what if I told you that, or what if I asked you to just remove Genesis from the story for a second? The book of Genesis, just take it right out of the Bible, forget it even existed, just for a moment. And instead, I want you to imagine that the story starts with the book of Deuteronomy, right? So they've come out of Egypt, and now they're sort of like establishing their people, their ways of life, their codes, their laws. And God, having just led them out of Egypt through great signs and wonders, and having been their salvation from the hands of their enemies, leads them and has these experiences with them as a people, and he calls them his people, and they become this chosen, very specific people called out from the masses of Egypt to be his people, to be his, holy chosen priesthood, his holy chosen people, precious, yada, 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 the words. But imagine if the story started there, right? Well, what do we find in that story in Deuteronomy? Well, we find God and Moses, or through Moses, God is conveying and explaining to the people of Israel what the deal is. What the dealio. See if I can scoot in here. This is a very dangerous intersection. Okay, and I made it. He's explaining to them that because they are a chosen people, they're under a lot of responsibility, or they have a great responsibility, I should say. And they're under a bit of pressure too, because Moses repeats this multiple times. Hold on one second. So it's repeated multiple times that they are under a contract of blessings and of curses. And Moses explains to them very thoroughly that if they do not abide by every point in this contract, if they are not careful to hold that law with such great focus and great attention, and to abide by that law and fulfill that law, live in that law, write it on their doorposts, inscribe it on their minds and foreheads, speak of it when they rise in the morning, speak of it when they lay at night to go to bed. This was the story. This was what they were told to do. And if they didn't do that, Moses repeatedly tells the people of Israel that they would be cursed. And for those of you who have actually opened the Old Testament, I know there's not many of you, but for those of you who have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is the book of Deuteronomy, and this is a huge, huge component to the Old Testament story. This curse warning from Moses is repeated probably dozens of times in that section of Deuteronomy. And it always pertains to the people of Israel, and it always pertains to their law. There is no curse without that law. There is no curse without those people. So, at some point you have to ask yourself, well, if the curse warnings were only given to them, as was the law, then why are people applying that curse to them today? Shouldn't it at least prompt someone to consider that if the curse warnings were only given to Israel, then why does the curse have anything to do with anyone else beyond them? So, getting a bit off topic here, but imagine if the Bible started in Deuteronomy, right? You had some, knowledge of Israel coming out of Egypt, and boom, the story starts right there. Imagine if Genesis and the imagery that we find there, the stories and tales of old that we find there, imagine those were not even present. They didn't exist. It was just Deuteronomy. God calls his people together, the people of Israel, and God gives them these commandments, these laws, these statutes, and he tells them through his prophet Moses, who was a prophet of Israel, that they better do all that they can to abide and honor this law system that they were so uniquely bestowed with, or had bestowed upon them. If that's where the story started, don't you think that people would kind of pick up on the fact that this is only about Israel? I think they would. But why don't they? Well, it's because of the book of Genesis. That's the only reason. That's their only argument. If the book of Genesis did not exist, or if certain portions of the book of Genesis did not exist or were not in the Bible, they would not feel this way. I can assure you that they would take a more Israel-only-ish approach. Because it's common sense. Right? It's common sense. I don't tell my daughter not to eat popsicles on the weekend and then punish someone else's kid for eating popsicles on the weekend. Right? It doesn't make any sense. Right? The only person that I could punish for eating popsicles on the weekend would be my daughter, because she's the only one that I told. Right? So it's that sort of thing. With great responsibility, or with great blessing, comes great responsibility. And Israel had that responsibility, and they chose to neglect it and abandon it. So, if Genesis didn't exist, and we didn't have the imagery of Adam and Eve walking naked in the garden, well, things would be quite different, I can assure you. But all Adam and Eve is, or I should get you to consider at least, that all Adam and Eve is, the story of Adam and Eve, is Israel's tale of where they began, or an imagery or symbolism for their relationship, their covenant relationship with their God, Yahweh. The prophets of Israel, Isaiah and others, all speak of the Garden of Eden, the Garden of God, and it's always Jerusalem, where the temple was, where the people of Israel were with their God. It was always Jerusalem, the Garden of Eden, the Garden of God. So, in speaking of Adam and Eve and violating that tree of knowledge, which of course we know Paul said the law gives knowledge of sin, keyword knowledge. Once that tree of knowledge was broken, or ignored, if you will, by Adam and Eve, they were guilty. They had imputation of sin. Their covenant relationship, their peaceful, gardenous relationship with their God came to an end. They were cast out of the garden. And wouldn't you know that in the Old Testament prophets, this language is found. And it's always speaking about Israel being banished from their land, being exiled. So, to me, Adam and Eve is nothing more than some Israelites or Jews who came around later on and shadowed or called attention back to some of their legends, some of their traditions, some of, what they thought or where they thought they came from. And I really don't believe it should be taken as anything more than that. Unless one believes in talking snakes and, different things. I mean, that's your prerogative. But I think it's much better and much safer to take it as what it is. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say for today. Ask yourself that question. If the Bible started in the book of Deuteronomy, how many people would reject Israel only? Because at the end of the story, the curse goes away. And if we can link the curse to the only people that had the law, that being Israel, and if we know that curse went away, ironically when the temple fell and all things related to the law were destroyed, well, then we can pretty much make the argument that that salvation of the curse, or that salvation from the curse, was also only related to them. Anyway, folks, I hope you all have a great day. If you liked it, give it a like. If not, take a hike, and we'll catch you on that next time. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.